I want to welcome everyone to the September Kingston Public Library Board of Trustees meeting. It is 6:01. In attendance, we have Donald Cone, Library Director, Trustees Carolyn Bromage, Matt Donahue, Jen Quackenbush, Emily Curtin, and we have the head of the foundation, Debbie Grace, and representatives from Northlight Financial to present here this evening. We are going to open up with that presentation.
Okay, thanks so much. So it's great to see you all again. I know it's been a little bit with COVID and schedules and things going on and changes in your board. So we're delighted to be back here in person. And we always feel that the meetings are much better in person. It just gives us a better chance to get to know you and give you a chance to ask questions. Our Zoom's been great. I think replacing that face-to-face is tough. So we're going to start tonight. I'm going to give you a stock market overview so we can update what's going on in the markets and a bit of an economic forecast. Margaret's going to talk about the election, and we're not going to be an hour here talking. It's brief, but we just wanted to really give you a good vision of what's going on and what are the kind of things that we're looking at. And then we'll dive into your portfolio and then you can ask some questions, okay? So if you turn to the first tab, the first page is a graph that we use, and it looks at all the different asset classes that we're investing in. And then that white where you see the line, that's for a 60% equity and a 40% bond portfolio, which is for us a typical retiree portfolio. So we like to show people that, you know, when you stay invested like that, you're going to sort of bump along the middle. You may not be at the top of the bucket or at the bottom either. So your particular portfolio is actually 50-50. So it's probably will be a little bit below this, but it's a safe place to be given the direction for your fund. But you can see, you know, if you look at the top going across, the blue blocks are REITs, which are real estate investment trusts, and they can do really well and they can do really bad. And they're not liquid investments, so we don't usually use them. They're used really for ultra high net worth people who don't need the cash. But for the most part, it's the green blocks. Those are our large cap, and that's what mostly we invest in is large cap, whether it's growth or value. Okay. We use a lot of JP Morgan statistics. You'll see that at the bottom of the page. The next page, you've probably all heard about the Magnificent Seven, which has been really outperforming the markets over the last few years. And that is comprised of Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, which is Facebook, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. And so those 7 stocks within the S&P 500. So on the S&P 500, there's 500 companies in there. And so the sort of problem or challenge, if you will, is that over the last few years, 7 stocks have really been responsible for a lot of the gain in that S&P 500. So it is starting to shift a little bit. So the last few weeks, we've seen a little bit of a pullback. And a lot of this has to do with AI, which I'm sure you're all investigating and looking at and probably maybe even using at this point. And we believe there's still a lot of opportunity in AI, and it's really going to transcend not just the computer industry, but hospitals and libraries and students and really just about any business at some point. Personally, we're all going to be using it for one thing or another. So I wanted you to see, so year to date, and these numbers are through June 30. Year to date for those 7 stocks, they were up 33%. So that's pretty outstanding. And then last year, that's when NVIDIA really took off and Microsoft up 76%. So it was responsible for a lot of the growth in portfolios. But, you know, again, it's pulled back a little bit. NVIDIA is coming down a little bit, but it's not to say it's anything we bail on. But it just bears watching. But the other companies, the other 493, they're still reporting good earnings and solid growth. So it's still a good place to be, a safe place to be. On the next page, I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but I want to highlight the top line. So on the left-hand side box, these are style boxes from Morningstar, and they look at all the historical data for the S&P 500. So for the 10-year annualized on large companies, for value, it was 8.2% over the last 10 years. So that means each of the last 10 years, the value stocks have returned 8.2%. Now, there's been years when it's been 15%, and there's been 1 or 2 years that have been down. But you can see when you have a longer term perspective, you're good. On the blend side, which is about half and half, up to 12.9. And then on the growth side, 16.3, which is where our portfolio and your portfolio is slanted toward growth. I've always tended to go that route, and lucky that we did, because it definitely has better results. So year to date, and again, this is through June 30, we may have given back a little bit, but recently, the last week or so, we've regained. But the growth stocks are up 20%, and the blends are up 15.3. So we feel really comfortable being in that part of the investment world, if you will. The small and mid caps, they have some decent results, but we find safety in the larger cap and in the long term. The next page, people get really nervous when the market's down. And so we use this to sort of illustrate that even though it may be down today or tomorrow or this month, in most years, it recovers from that. So the red numbers that you see on the bottom was the worst point that the market was in whatever particular given year. So year to date, which is the farthest right-hand one, so far at one point we were down 5% this year, but currently we're up 14. The year before, last year, at one point we were down 10%. And every year there's a 5 or a 10% correction for whatever reason. It can be, something happening in the world. It could be COVID. It could be policy. It could be a lot of different things. But as you can see, last year, the market ended up 24%. Okay. Now, the one I like to point out, because the most painful year was 2008, 2009. And at that given point, the market at one point was down 49%. Were people nervous? Absolutely. I mean, that was our really hardest time. It's the first time I thought, oh my God, I don't know if I like this job anymore. But the market ended up down 38, which is still not great, but it didn't end at its lowest point. And then if you can see, then the following years, we were up 23, 13, a flat year, and then up 30. So it recovers. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we'd like, but it recovers. And that's the point. So we try to tell people, don't panic. We've had a little bit of a decline this year. Could there be another one? We're always sort of looking at that, but overall, economically, if you flip to the next page, we're really not expecting that. This is they call speedometers, where they're looking at all the different aspects of the economy, and to say, a green one is good, a yellow one is sort of cautious, and the red is, you need to watch out a little bit. So you can see the red is geopolitical risk. So we're all well aware of what's going on in the world, and there's just a lot of, instability all over. So that can present a problem. And then equity market valuation. So they're kind of wavering a little bit, but, not to be so concerned. We're watching it. But for the most part, the labor market is good. Consumer spending is still pretty good. We are expecting a rate cut tomorrow.
Possibly.
Yeah. So the Fed is meeting. And that should hopefully help things, although it depends whether it's a 25-point rate cut or 50-point rate cut. And so some people aren't going to be happy no matter which way it goes. So I'm not sure how the market will react, but we don't get too concerned with the day-to-day movements of the market. We want to see things going in the right direction. But most of the leading indexes say that business is still good. Companies are still really profitable. Job growth has slowed a bit, but it's not flat. Okay, so we still had some job growth last month. It was the lowest that it's been in a long time, but it's still there, and they're good jobs. So the labor market's steady. So I guess what I'm saying is there's still a lot of really good news out there. If these rates can come down, then some more people can afford mortgages and get back in the market. But we're not headed for a recession. So that's sort of off the table from everyone we listen to. The next question is about the election. So I'm going to let Margaret go for that.
Yeah, that's something that's been coming up a lot when we've had client meetings, and we certainly have lived through other contentious elections, even though this one feels especially so. But again, trying to take the longer view and trying to reassure our clients that if you look at this chart, and it has since 1933, $1,000 invested, and that at the end of 2023, it will be worth over 21 million. And during that time, it has gone through both the blue, the Democrat, the red, the Republican, all of these administrations, and really it's done just fine. So no matter who's in office, it will be okay and it will work out, because what the markets are more concerned about is not necessarily the latest campaign stop or debate performance. What they're looking at is what's going on with large corporations, what's going on with earnings, those types of things. The interest rates, those mean more to the markets than necessarily who is in office. And the thing to also consider too is that there's so much focus sometimes on the presidential election, and you really have to think about the down ballot, because even though candidates may run on certain proposals or suggest things, they still have to be implemented into law. And so there's still the Congress, there's still the Senate. So all of these, these races matter, and you could arguably maybe even a little bit more, so that's something to pay attention to. And then it's just, just over the long run, the market's returns don't correlate necessarily with whatever party's in office. And again, what I just said, corporate profits, interest rates, and also the direction of monetary policy. Something that is out there, however, is tax policy, because those tax laws are due to sunset in 2026. So depending on what party is in, and again, more the control over Senate and Congress, that's something that could influence things like corporate profits, and also people's pocketbook, because consumers drive 70% of the economy. So if the consumers are still spending, things are good. So that's what we want to kind of see continue to happen. So just to reassure, and Jane and I personally can't wait till it's over.
Any questions so far? Okay, so now we'll dive into your portfolio, and going to the second page in that section. So right now, and this is as of 9/11, the portfolio was at $519,168. So year to date, you're up 7.8%, which is really good, given it's a 50-50 balance. You've appreciated in value $37,610. Last year, 2023, your portfolio was up 10.39%. And that appreciation there was 45,326. So, it's doing well. Since you started with us in 2020, we're up $65,607. You've taken out a little bit, you don't take out a lot. So it's nice that it still remains invested. So, it's doing its job. Okay. And if we can keep that going, and obviously we're staying way ahead of you in terms of withdrawals, that's the plan. The next page gives you a graph of how it's invested. So on the left-hand side, it's sort of broader categories, equity and fixed income, and then that blend. And you can see you're really 50-50. If you take that purple piece and divide it in half, that's where it goes for half and half stocks versus bonds. And we always have a little bit of cash just because we're getting in dividends and income and capital gains. So and every quarter this gets rebalanced, so that cash position does get reinvested, but there's always a certain percentage that's in there. And in the event that you need cash, we'll have it available for you. On the right hand side, it's a bit more detailed. You can see there's a lot of pieces of pie, but your top category is the large cap. And again, that's our focus. That's where we stay laser focused in terms of keeping clients' assets in a conservative, safe place. Is there risk here? Absolutely. But it's minimized because we're overemphasizing the large size. And then we've got, intermediate term bonds. We've got some treasury bonds. We've got a little bit of high yield, but those numbers are smaller. But it's really to try to generate some income for the portfolio. So the next page is the actual assets that are in there. We have a blend of American funds and a blend of Vanguard funds. And the reason we do that is American funds are actively managed funds. And so those fund managers are out there seeking opportunities, where are the companies that are going to do well? And a great example was during COVID when Peloton took off and Zoom took off. So different things, and that's not to say they're doing great now, but at that time, that was the opportunity. And right now, there are opportunities, defense stocks, while we don't like to profit from selling arms to the world. There are companies here that are ramping up and doing business. Whereas the Vanguard funds, they are index funds, and they just buy the S&P 500 and that's it. They don't have to do a lot of research. They don't have to visit companies. But it's those are called passively managed funds. So we like to create a blend of it, and we find that it's sort of a recipe for success for the portfolios. And so, that's the nuts and bolts of it. There's no real reason to disturb unless, you felt that you wanted to do anything with the portfolio or had some additional questions. But I think, given that you are an endowment, it's essentially that this is a really conservative position to be in. I also serve on the board of Pilgrim Hall Museum, and they may go a little more aggressive with some of their money. They're looking at, they've got donations and things that are going to remain in perpetuity. So they're saying, well, we can't touch those funds for probably forever. So maybe we might carve out a piece of the portfolio, and it's larger than this one, and it's not to just this one at all. But they're saying, maybe we want to take a portion and get a little more aggressive out there with equity. So they're like 60-40. So they may go to 70-30, something like that. But that's something to consider if you don't think that, you're going to be using this in the next 5 to 10 years, that maybe we might want to change it to 60-40 or a little bit more. That would be a decision that you guys would have to make. But, overall, I think it's done well. It's very safe. You'll never get criticized for this portfolio if someone comes in and looks at this. And that's definitely important to a board. All right, any questions?
This is more a curious question.
Sure.
I was wondering, I noticed these have like stock tickers, obviously, kind of deal. Is it possible to look into each of these just like on my own time and see exactly what makes up each
Yep.
fund?
And actually, if you give us,
exactly which
if you
components
give
of it.
us your email, we actually can email you. I should have included that. We can email the exact stocks that are in here. I can tell you the number one holding is going to be Microsoft, because it is in about 99.9% of our portfolios,
Right.
just because the value has gone up so much. But yeah, I'll leave you my card, and you can send me an email, and then we'll forward you, and we can do it to everybody if you want. So it's what it does. It's from Morningstar, and it looks at all the funds that you own and what are the stocks that are in those funds. And then it helps us when we're trying to decide what to do. Are we too heavy in one area? Should we dial back the rest? Something like that. But yeah, no, it's a good question.
Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you.
What else?
Just a quick question
Thank
on
you.
the portfolio snapshot under the investment objectives. What would make up other?
Other would be, I want to say, gold or something like that, but sometimes it could be a little bit of real estate. It could be some like a bond fund, something like that, that's not readily tradable, okay? But nothing to be alarmed about. It's not crypto or
Pirate
anything.
treasure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sometimes within portfolios, they just have some holdings that it's probably real estate, honestly, because some of these may have a little bit in a real estate fund, not a real estate investment trust, which is different.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. So would all of you like that listing of the stocks? Would that be helpful?
It would be great just to have in the records.
Okay,
That would be-
so maybe what we can do is send it to you, and then you can disperse it to
Sure.
the group. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Does that work? Okay, we'll get that
Sounds
out to
good.
you tomorrow, because we know we have your email on file, and then you'll have the list. And anytime you want us to come back and review and chat, or a quick phone call, we're ready. We also have a new associate, Jackie Walsh, who's joined us. So she's lives in Marshfield, and she's been a great addition to our staff. So yeah, you'll probably need her next time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate
You're
you. coming in.
welcome. It's always nice to
Thank
have
you.
you.
So are they still winning?
I know.
All right, we'll let you continue with your meeting.
Get out of here early, right?
Thank you so much.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
See you soon.
Yes.
Don't have the baby voice.
Okay.
Yeah, she just. All right, thanks a lot. Have a great night.
You as well.
Jill,
Thank
I'll
you.
see you this weekend. You will. I'm working, we're in the same field. So, I'm there Sunday.
Me too.
Okay.
See you then.
All right, so moving on, the next bullet point is minutes approval. They went out with, we're down to just doing one set of minutes again, so we're all caught up. Were there any edits or changes that anyone saw to the minutes? All right, not seeing any, I will take a motion to accept the minutes.
I move to accept the minutes from our August 19th meeting.
I'll second.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. The next bullet is a subcommittee update, which, Donald, I don't think we have too much in the way of the subcommittee update.
No, no, I've reached out to one of the vendors for the asbestos removal, and I did get a quote back on that. But we have not had another meeting, so we do need to schedule.
Right, I need to reach out to the members from the board and Deb and Jess and find out what day, time is gonna be a good time for everyone. 'Cause there's a lot of schedules to work with.
Yeah.
Figure something out. The treasurer bonding update.
Goes
Would you-
on and on.
Now the longest bullet point of the year.
You know, you send it in and then you wait 3 weeks and then she says, oh, you need a date on it. And then you go back, you send it back to her again and we're still waiting.
But all of the paperwork is complete.
All the paperwork, everything's notarized.
All the
everything
processing
is
has been
in,
done,
it's
so now we're just waiting
yeah.
for the mailing of the
Yeah.
actual bill. But all that paperwork is complete, so this will be the last time you see treasurer bonding update on the agenda until next year.
Slow and steady wins the race.
All right, now on to the exciting social media policy discussion. The policy went out, Donald sent it out with the reports for us to look at, and I know that you have already identified an area that you think the language could potentially be changed or updated.
That is correct. So the last page, so page 3, towards the end of it, for group photos in lieu of photo release forms, programmers will need to announce at the beginning of each program that the library may photograph or videotape you for library promotional purposes. Notify library staff if you do not want to be photographed. So that area could be modified to include the actual programmers in the sense of, the actual vendors who are doing the events. But before we went to that, I would want us to discuss whether or not we would feel comfortable, because basically this policy pertains to the library taking videos and photos to use for social media. And we're looking at the outside group that's coming in or the performer that's coming in that would be using the footage or the photos for their own social media. So it may be a question, so we could either, change that language so that it identifies, to attendees that, that they are being recorded or, photographed, or we not allow that. So that would be the discussion that, I want the board to kind of filter out. I mean, I personally think that the change in language to just have it that the vendors make the announcement as well, just advisement to the attendees, I think would be sufficient. I mean, only, I mean, I've attended other library programs where, for example, the local cable company came in, unannounced to record, and the performer stopped them and wouldn't allow it. These were like reenactors and so forth. I don't think that it's going to be something that would happen often, but I do think that, if we can have something in the policy
Sure.
to identify it, then we should.
If you said the library and then after that say, and agencies or individuals they're working in collaboration with, or something like that to indicate, I don't think you would say vendors from in this particular language.
Groups or individuals
Yeah.
affiliated with this
Group that-
program, like,
And then say that you'd have to not only notify library staff, but also notify them, because if they are recording, then they would have to know as well.
Mhm.
Is that sufficient language to cover what we're worried about?
I think it would be, I think that what we just have to be mindful of, is that, the librarians who are, with these, with the performers or whoever, it's kind of going to be a retraining, because basically attendees just, come, the staff, introduces whoever, they do their, performance, their speeches, what have you. And then, that's it. And obviously, as individuals, we could sit, whip out our cameras, get a photo or what have you. And there's generally no harm with that. But it's just going to be a matter of retraining staff to just make sure that, this practice is now part of their arsenal for, as part of the greeting of welcoming, Carolyn to come and do her magic show, that, to include a certain statement.
Well, I wonder when we contract with different performers and individuals, if we direct them to the social media policy, just so they're aware of it ahead of time too. That it's stated in the library social media policy, and in collaboration with the library. Now, they will understand that this is the language that we're using ahead of time, so nobody is surprised when the announcement's made at the beginning. You are right, though, because any number of people in the audience could take out a camera.
Absolutely.
Do you want us to identify the specific language today so that we can get it changed? I mean, I think we could.
Yeah, I think definitely that it can be done.
Is there anyone who would like to throw out what they think would be adequate language to cover the concern?
in terms specifically of the library itself or vendors? I
Yeah,
guess,
the
to
part
recording?
to add in between library and May, what do we want to refer to the vendors, or how we would like to refer to the vendors in this particular statement?
Maybe the library and or persons or groups affiliated with this program or something like that.
Persons and groups, does that make sense?
Mhm.
You think persons and groups? You're gonna have to make an official. I'm right.
That's why I'm throwing in that crucial and or. It's the-
And or persons and groups affiliated with library, comma, may photograph or videotape you for, I would just take out library promotional purposes and just strike library and leave it as promotional purposes, indicating that it can be referencing the library or the vendor.
Well, my question is, I guess, I'm gonna get semantic here. Would the vendors for this purpose be considered people affiliated with the library, quote unquote?
For this program, I think they are, right? For this program that
Well,
they're.
I think to word it as that persons or groups affiliated with this program,
Okay.
but
That's-
identify them just specifically for that.
Yeah. So that, somebody doesn't come back later and say, what? I'm not really a library employee. This was a one-off or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? Just like, indemnification in advance.
Okay. It's interesting because as I look at this, it says prior to what we're nitpicking right now, for group photos in lieu of photo release forms, programmers will need to announce at the beginning of each program. Is it programmers that announce it? Or are you meaning library staff as the programmer, not the?
I think that's how it was, that was the intent was,
Do you want to change that to
Library staff.
library staff so that it doesn't seem like programmers as in the folks who are
Right.
performing and
Yep.
or presenting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, then that makes more sense with the rest of it.
For this, so whatever the motion may be based upon the discussion that just took place, it would be a motion to strike and replace programmers with library staff.
Yes,
To strike library before promotional purposes, and to include the library persons and groups affiliated with this program.
and or persons and groups affiliated with it. Yes. Donald has done a dry run. Who would like to make the official motion?
Library and or persons. groups.
Yes. And or persons and groups.
I will make a motion to include and strike things from the language according to what Donald just said. Is that sufficient? Is
No.
that really sufficient enough?
We have to walk through it again.
Okay.
Are you confident doing it?
I'll give it my best shot.
Okay.
The other time, at least read this. Because I'm never gonna memorize it in time. Everyone will be here all night. I make a motion to alter the library's social media policy to strike programmers and replace it with library staff. And to change the announcement, I guess, to say that the library and or persons or groups affiliated with this program may photograph or videotape you for promotional purposes, thereby again striking the word library from the policy. I tried.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
All in favor, we'll have to do individual votes for this since we are changing the policy, so.
Aye.
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 Aye. Right, so it's unanimous. Moving forward, we can change those.
Woo, Third or fourth meeting in a row. Taking on the people.
Trial by fire, okay.
I wrote somehow.
I will alter the document sent to me, date the bottom of it with today's date, so that if we need to reproduce it, it will show that it was discussed
Okay,
and altered on this date.
okay.
And then if we want to post it with the rest of the policies. All right. On to the director's report.
Yes. So I actually, I'll just highlight a kind of few different things. I randomly met a citizen of ours in a store and we got a discussion going. And so that person, Jen Simpson, will be offering a Halloween card making program in October. So I'm kind of excited for that. I'm in the process of attending various webinars that are series. I actually began one today that was an ALA webinar, which is the Public Library Director Crash Course, Getting the Skills You Need, and it's a refresher. The MLS actually, so there is a typo in my report. The MLS has partnered with ALA to offer ALA level programs and training sessions. So this was the first of the 3 week session. There are various other sessions that I will be attending in coming weeks. I recently personally had to go to the Carver Library, and in the process I spoke to them about the issuance of passports in the process, and really, fundamentally, what was the effort and time. They did give me a lot of insight into that as being a future offering for, the library. And it was great because I did a walkthrough of the library, and then I ended up speaking to other staff members and got different perspectives of different, ideas of things. And actually it turned out that someone working in the children's room was recently here and raved about the play group room, because she was having a play date with her children here with another friend who lives in town, and just kind of raved about the room. So it was nice to hear that. Let's see, attended a invoice entry session at Town Hall with the admin Karen Kelly. Basically, what is happening is a function of accounting that has always fallen on the assistant town accountant. Now there is an expectation that the admins of each department will do invoice entry level entering. It actually, it's something that she already does for a different, kind of worksheet and what have you. So it, in essence, will save us time. And it will, kind of streamline things in a way we'll have better controls, for the availability to see funds and to see the status of the funds, in the sense of like, okay, whether or not the current process is basically we bring bills down, it gets entered manually by them, and during that period of time, it's kind of in limbo, whereas this will give us a more of a visible, kind of transparency to see where we're at. I met with the facilities director to discuss the courtyard and the front entry maintenance. We did have the pavers installed along the entry walkway yesterday, so the book drop was closed to allow the landscapers to work on that. I also discussed with facilities in the town electricians concerning the chandelier at the Adams Center, which, as you know, has been a 3-year challenge. And when I tell you what the electrician said as a form of recourse, it will be hysterical. So basically, the chandelier that we have over there is a specific, is a special ordered, chandelier. It is of a specific size that is no longer a standard size. However, in historic times, it was a more standard size. So after much discussion back and forth, the more standard size is a smaller size, which would fit on the chandelier. So the recommendation of the electrician was to order shades that were of the smaller size and get longer screws. After all of that, they because there was enough spacing, and they'd gone louder and they were measuring things and stuff like that, and they measure out, they knew the sizing of the screw that would be needed to do that, so that they were like, that is a simple, because the problem is that the fitters, which could be replaced to resize them properly, had actually been tack welded on, whereas newer ones you could just screw off. But because this was a custom order, it had been welded, and it would result in us having to take the whole chandelier down. So I do have a shade that I picked up at Lowe's, just as the smallest size as a test, and I'm making arrangements with facilities to come over and test it out to see that it actually works. So I basically bought a $5 shade to ensure that this will work, versus because I did find alternatives, true antique alternatives that ranged in price from $127 to $194 a shade, which was, in my opinion, a lot, but the end might be near with that project. And another facilities discussion was that of the lamppost lights. Recently, we reported to them that one of the lamps the light was flickering, and one of them was completely out at the end of the parking lot. The electricians came out, and it is believed that the one at the end of the parking lot, during the dig up process of the project that they were working on, that they cut and dragged the wires. And I know that today, they had been contacted. Eversource was going to contact Anthony was going to look into it, and I know that today that facilities reached out to them again to get an update of this. So if you should come by and see that out, that is what we're kind of dealing with right now. As far as miscellaneous things, we got some new Library of Things technology. We got a scan reader pen, which basically is looks kind of like a remote control that you can command it to, give it commands to read from one language and translate to another. So for example, if we did outreach somewhere and we had someone who spoke French, that we could set it up to English and French, took our library card application, it would read the line and it would translate it into the language. And then the other thing that we got was AI translators, which basically, once again, looks like a little remote control that has a red and blue button. And what it is, same kind of idea, that you can have a conversation with an individual. So not only, locally, it could be utilized, in many ways, but for, someone who's going on a trip to Italy or somewhere, that this could be something that they could use, that basically you would press I can't remember if it's the red button or the blue button that goes first, but the person would push the button, say, "Good morning, how are you?" And then once they released it, it said it in that language. And then the other person would press the other color button, say the response, and it would translate it back into the other language.
Is this on the shelf right now? Or has it been checked out?
It is currently in my office. They're currently in my office, as it was something that I wanted staff to have more exposure to, as far as library things, to ensure that there was a good understanding of it. So for example, with these devices that, like with the translators, you can hook them up to Wi-Fi, and if they're hooked up to Wi-Fi, they're open to more foreign languages, whereas if it's just what's saved kind of on the device itself, it's more limited. So it'd be the more common languages that would be available on that. So yeah, so I was very happy when I opened it up, and so we had Polish conversations going back and forth.
Is it going to go out on the shelves, do you think, next month? Maybe?
Possibly. I'm feeling pressure now. Feeling pressure.
We're all like, I want that. No, I want
Could
that.
Yeah, right now.
Could you
We're gonna be
put that
wrestling
on hold
over
for
it.
me?
I guess well, it's not that serious, but I guess a curious question is, does it include languages that are like local to us? Like, does it include Portuguese or Haitian Creole or?
So
languages?
it does have, and they're both different. The pen reader was a little
Brazilian
different.
Portuguese and Portuguese are slightly different. So do you know if it happens to have Brazilian Portuguese?
There's
Yeah.
quite a few different languages on
Okay.
there. So honestly, I was amazed at the number of different Englishes. Like, there's New Zealand English. It was all over. So there's quite a few.
Yeah. I especially appreciate your question, Emily, because my great grandfather was from the Azores, and I know a thing or two about how wacky Portuguese can be. So that's a fair question.
So those are really the highlights. Other than meeting with the rec department to discuss book and treat, it has gone live for publicity and marketing as of today. So it's going to be the same setup as it has been the last couple of years, with the exception of that we're shifting the hours so that it will begin and end an hour earlier, so that it will be from 4 to 7 versus 5 to 8 as it has been in the past. And yeah, so if there are any questions to my reports.
I have no questions, but I did bring this print of social media that I on town trust, but it was about the library. Okay, rejoining our September meeting at 6:50. We had an issue with Zoom technology at 6:45. We are back to recording. Still in attendance, we have trustees Carolyn Bromwich, Matt Donahue, Jen Quackenbush, myself, Emily Curtin. We have the head of the foundation, Debbie Grace, and library director Donald Colon. Presenters from previously this evening from Northlight Financial have left at this point. We are going to pick up where we left off on the agenda, which is staff reports. Does anyone have any concerns about the staff reports, feedback about the staff reports that they would like to share? All right, not seeing any. I will move on to the foundation update. Deb?
Sure. We actually are going to be celebrating our 15th anniversary, the founding of the foundation in November. I've spoken to Donald about having a small celebration that day in the library. It happens to be a Saturday. We are looking to just hand out cookies, that's it. Members of the directors from the board will be present for most of the day to ask questions. There'll be posters of what we've accomplished over the 15 years and the hopes. Some surprises that are coming forward, we hope. And then Kingston Living will be doing a feature on the past and current directors for their January issue. So they will be on hand to take a group photo of everyone at 4:30. That is really it for us. Our appeal letter will be going out in October.
Congratulations. The payment of bills bullet is just us waiting on the bonding. Nothing beyond that. Under old business, we do have a couple of things. Do you want to mention the meeting dates? Only because we do have one of them already
But that would be new.
established. All right, one is technically old business. We're gonna bump it to new business because we do have one of those dates already set in October. So that's kind of old business. I was gonna tie it to that.
Okay,
but-
okay. Okay, so recently, an email went out to department heads that have committees and boards that a bylaw had been passed that requires meetings to be scheduled 6 months in advance and that it be posted on the individual department's webpage. So there is a page on the town's website for the Board of Library Trustees. So that is where the actual meeting dates would be. So I went through and did all of the third Mondays of the months, acknowledging the ones that were holidays.
Thank you.
So, yes. Because these will follow, because these will follow the foundation meetings.
And the reason that that I tied it under old businesses, because I believe that we had established that October 21st would be the meeting in October. That fortuitously is the first one on this list. And then it would go to the 18th of November. And I'm just gonna run through this list as Donald has presented it. Thank you for that. Seeing that, oh no, sorry. It looks like on January 20th,
That's Martin Luther King.
right, so it would bump to the 27th,
That is correct.
and the 17th would bump it to it would be bumped to February 24th. So the way that this is presented will be the way that the meetings will roll out for the next 6 months, unless there's a concern at the table right now.
Well, is it rolling? So like next month in October meeting, do we have to plan when the April meeting is gonna be?
I guess we'll have to
Yes.
do that every single time
Yes.
and add it to the list.
Yes,
Okay.
other than if the board wanted to do it set it as an annual calendar. Obviously, while this may be what is set now, as time progresses, obviously there may be times that we won't have a quorum for whatever reason, then dates have to be adjusted. That can be done. It's just a matter of that for future planning, we need to have it 6 months out. So if it would be easier, folks, because then we're just kind of dealing with it, once a year, that we would just do it as placeholders. because that's really what it would be. Because I mean, we can sit here now and say March 17th would be the best date, but the rest is there might be a need to
Move it
move it.
or change it, right?
Here's a curious question. I don't think this really necessarily matters or changes anything, but March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. Does that count as a holiday for our purposes or not?
It is not in any bargaining agreement or
I
the
say that
wage
as-
and personnel
I say that as
bylaw.
someone who's not a party person at all. I was just curious because we are in Massachusetts.
It is, regrettably, it is not. We can all opt to wear a bit of green that day.
I will make cookies.
Lots of shamrock attire. that kind of thing.
I think rather than, I mean, we can agree to this and then at the next meeting, hunt down the next, finish the year. And leave it at that, if that makes sense. So we agree to these dates this evening, and then at our October meeting, figure out the next 6 and then leave it for a year. It's probably the best thing to do, I think,
So, no, because we would then,
because it would be April.
so if we do it, so it wouldn't be another year, because as time moves on, we still will need to be at least 6 months out. So it may be a case of that in January, one of the dates, we may have to, if that January, because then we have January, February, March, April, May, June. So in January, we'd have to then set the next 6 months, because we'd only have January through June posted. So it's either January or February that we would do the next 6.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So we're chasing our dates. We'll just have to keep track. We'll just have to keep track of chasing down the dates. But these, just looking at them, seem to work with the holidays schedule, and so I say we agree to this, the way that it is, unless we have opposition to it. Unless we have opposition to it, and then we can do as Donald says, and as we move forward, we'll just add on to it and see if we're hitting any vacations or whatever.
Yeah,
it might
I was
be.
just looking, the third Monday in April is spring break.
Is spring break, yeah, so if we know right off the bat for next time, then we'll probably bump it
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll agree to what Donald has drafted up here, so these can be posted as typed. I think we should probably take an official vote on these dates. So all in favor in the 6-month stretch presented to us as October 21st, November 18th, December 16th, January 20th, 2025, February 17th, 2025, and St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2025.
Those are the 2 holidays.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. January 27th, February 24th, and March 17th. Confusing.
Is that a motion? or just-
Just an eye.
Just an I.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so I'm in favor. So now these can be posted with the bumped dates for the 2 holidays.
Okay.
How interesting that there were technically 3 holidays in a row though on those dates.
Yeah, in a sense. Spirit if nothing else.
So that was an old business, new business hybrid, now onto full new business.
Full new business, yes. So 2 things, I did remember the third thing. that
Okay.
So recently, as I mentioned in my report, that I met with Ken Brack from the Kingston 300th Book Group to discuss future program planning. When he met with me, it was to make an ask that at the October trustee meeting, that the Kingston 300th committee, the Kingston 300th Book Group, and the Historical Commission come to that meeting to discuss future partnerships in planning. It is more, I think, of a general overview of in 2026 that they would like to work with us in having, speakers and other programs, including a photo exhibit, which I actually really liked, which was going to be kind of like a then and now situation. They're working with a photographer for the book who has agreed to, take photos of things, locations and stuff. So they wanted an opportunity to come and, make that pitch. About this, we had met them with the Kingston 300th book, previously, and, offered, programming, opportunities and what have you. So I think this is just going to be an initial kind of discussion about, what they kind of see as program ideas, to kind of lay out the groundwork for for 2026, and how we can be a part of it.
And they would like to present much like this evening's presentation at the beginning of the meeting.
Correct.
Perfect. Agenda. Your second thing.
So my second thing for new business is, as recently the trustees conducted the director's evaluation. At the October meeting, I will also present the goals for the fiscal year. So that will be presented, to the board, so that they can see the highlights of the projects that and goals that I'm really working towards, for this year. But that was it for the new business.
Excellent. And then I actually have one thing under new business that I'd spoken with Donald about prior to the meeting, which is some of our policies that are posted have don't have the most current date in which we looked at them, because we have reviewed many policies over the past 5 years. There was a time there where we were just policy heavy every meeting. So I want to make sure that all of our policies reflect that. And also there are a couple that probably do need to be revisited. So a little practice tonight with the social media policy, but we may have to go through some others. And I'm thinking that we'll set, one aside for each meeting and just work our way through once I figure out which ones haven't been looked at for a while. I think I was saying to Donald, I think the pet policy was the most recent one, or animals in the library. That was probably the most recent one that we did.
Yeah.
Called the pet policy and we renamed it. Any other new business? Not seeing any. I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting at 7.
Second that.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sorry, it was.